So this next expert that we have to chat with today, Dr. Gabrielle Pelicci, she is such an inspiration when it comes to creativity and the energetic relationship that we have with creativity. I'm so excited to jump into this conversation to share it with all of you. We will be discussing how creativity transforms us and the world, and how it's a portal of change. Dr. Gabby helps leaders, founders, coaches, and creatives turn their stories into gold. When she's not on stages like TEDx and South by Southwest or leading writing retreats in West Palm Beach, she is hanging out with her cat or paddleboarding in the warm Florida water. Dr. Gabby certainly knows how to live well and how to use her relationship with creativity to lead an inspired and healed life. Her book, The Last Ceremony, is her second book that she's written. And the first one called All This Healing is Killing Me. And both are incredible books. Both are deeply inspiring. And I'm excited to jump into this conversation. This next conversation is with Gabrielle Pelicci. Dr. Gabby is incredibly inspiring when it comes to cultivating our relationship with creativity, the flow of creativity, how each one of us can use it as a portal for change, and to really to lean into our relationship with creativity to be an agent of transformation for us and for the world. She has written two best-selling books. One is All This Healing is Killing Me, and her latest is The Last Ceremony. Gabrielle takes us on a captivating... So Gabrielle Pelicci is a professor and guide. So this next session, I am diving into a conversation with Gabrielle Pelicci. Dr. Gabby is truly inspirational when it comes to cultivating our relationship with creativity so that it can be a portal of change. And in this conversation, we'll really dive into how to lean into creativity to really create that relationship so that it can be an agent of transformation, both for ourselves and for the world. Dr. Gabby has written two books. All This Healing is Killing Me is her first, and her second is here, The Last Ceremony. Both are incredible. She is a professor and coach. She guides individuals and groups towards wholeness using writing as medicine. She has certifications in yoga, bodywork, meditation, mind-body medicine, energy healing, herbalism, and wellness coaching. She has completed her doctoral work in transformative studies with a dissertation on women healers and studied plant medicine with indigenous healers in New Mexico and Guatemala. Her first book, the one I mentioned, All This Healing is Killing Me, is a #1 Amazon bestseller. She leads writing retreats for first-time authors in West Palm Beach, Florida, where she resides. So excited to jump into this conversation and to share it with you. Welcome, Gabby. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. This is really fun. I'm glad we get to connect. It's been a while since we got to chat.
Yes, always a good time. Okay, so we're jumping into discussing creativity today, and this is something that you know how to lead really well.
Yes.
And
yes. I wrote two books about it.
Yes, you wrote two amazing books. I'd love to start this conversation off with an understanding of how you think about creativity, because it always like kind of, I don't know, it's a word that kind of catches people, and then they get spun around their own thinking about, like, am I creative, am I not, what it means to be creative. Sometimes it's limited to this box of like, oh, you have to be an artist or something. So can we just presence what creativity means to
Yeah.
you before we jump into the whole conversation.
That's a really good question. To me, creativity is synonymous with healing, expansion, growth, consciousness. I have a very transpersonal experience of creativity. For me, it was the thing that allowed me to finally clear all of the mental trash, all of the trauma, everything that I was storing in my body, and just get all of it out. And then experience a different state of consciousness, experience more bliss, more freedom, more love, more expansion, more self-acceptance. So it's sort of my religion, I guess, as I'm like describing it to you. It's sort of the practice that I think that makes us the most whole. And what I'm seeing in my work with clients every single time is whatever creative practice they abandon is the key to their healing. So if they abandon music, if they abandoned dance, whatever it was that they abandoned in their late teens, early 20s when they had to conform to a career path and what do you want to be when you grow up? As we circle back to that, as we find their voice, as we find that unedited, innocent version of them, and we resurrect that and we help them find their words and we help them engage in that practice again, all of the forces of the universe kind of collide to help them to self-express and to heal. So creativity is a really, really big deal to me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in what you just said, it just like makes me think of this like flow of energy that's been blocked. Um, and I want to dive into that. Before we dive into that, maybe talk a little bit about like help us get to know you a little bit, like your own maybe your own experience with that, like how if we're talking about creativity as a portal of change, to use it for transformation, how
Yeah.
did you come to know that so that you could then teach it so well?
Oh yeah, for sure. So in this first book, the one that all this healing is killing me, this one I wrote over the course of about 15 years. I kept trying to write it and then I would self-edit and resist and then I would try again and then I would get scared and contract. I had this battle, this wrestling with it because I was trying to be in my creative flow and at the same time do all the things that socially were, I don't know, making everyone else around me happy or helping me to maintain the mask I was wearing. Finally, when I broke through that, which is what I write about in this book, The Last Ceremony, finally, when I break through that and I fully own my creative voice and I fully express, then I am able to have a totally different embodied experience of wholeness. So I document that experience because I am a professor of integrative medicine. I have a PhD. I traveled to 50 countries. I interviewed women healers. I wrote articles. I published in academic journals. Like I did all of the things you're supposed to do, went to all the acupuncture and the EMDR and yoga classes and meditation retreats and Vipassana. I did all the things you're supposed to do. I advocate for those things. I believe in those things. I teach those things. But the missing ingredient for me, above all else, was my creative expression. Until I could be in my creative expression to say the true things, the things that were in the shadows, the secrets that I was ashamed of. In my first book, I talk about you're only as sick as your secrets. Until I could like fully get all of that out of the way, I just couldn't be in my own flow. Right now, I'm entering a totally new phase of life, a different paradigm, a different way of being, having had these two books birthed and now being on the other side of them. That's why I say it's a portal. I'm a different person on the other side of this. I'm a new human. And it's like a restored human, like stuff that was kind of denied, rejected, neglected, abandoned. But it's also a new version because we're always in the process of self-creation. That's what we're here to do, to constantly evolve and self-create. I know I'm talking a lot and I see you nodding. So
No, I'm loving it.
if you want to interrupt me, just tell me to.
Keep going. Yeah, that's great. I'm nodding because I'm like, yeah, I mean, like what I'm picturing energetically is like the way we box ourselves in over time, like you said, to kind of prune to fit what society expects of us, what the ways we need to conform, to kind of like feel like we need to conform, right? And then it's kind of like this, what it feels like you're describing is this breaking down of those boxes that our real energy can get through.
Yeah, I think of everything in terms of energy. That was like the first experience I had as a young woman when my mom died. When my mom died, I had a mystical experience and I could see and feel the energy of all the things, and I could see her transform into the energy of nature. And it was a very unusual experience that took me a lot of years to unravel and understand. But what I learned is that traditions all over the world for thousands of years have believed in energy. It's the prana, it's the chi, it's the life force. And I had a direct experience of that. And so for me, everything has always been energy. And so these things that you're talking about, these constraints, these restrictions, it could be trauma, it could be self-imposed conditioning, like I have to look a certain way or be a certain way, or I have to act this way in a job, or it could be real injuries, like emotional or physical injuries. All of that, I believe, creates a stagnation of energy. It creates this energy that's undigested. It's an energy that's not moving and flowing. And everything that we know about health, which is why I say creativity is healing, everything we know is that the energy always has to keep moving. It always has to keep moving. And so, this undigested energy that's stuck in there, creativity is one of the ways that we digest it. We digest it through movement, through music, through working with different healers, like anything that we do to get that flow going is critical to health. But the difference, I think, with creativity versus just regular healing modalities is creativity is witnessed. And we heal to the highest potential when we're in relationship with something else, with nature, with people. And so we're witnessed in our creativity. People are reading my books, they're being transformed, they're reflecting back to me who I am in the world, right? Same thing with music, dance, paintings, whatever the case may be. And I think that there's a special ingredient there in the witnessing that adds to this digestion and this flow that if you're just in a treatment room with somebody and you're getting some acupuncture, that's great. And there is the relationship with the healer, but there's something specific about creative expression that I think is unique as a healing modality.
Yeah, it makes me think of that light within, where it's like we can come to know the light, but until we let the light be seen, it's and reflected back to us, right? Like then it makes it more real.
Well, the
So,
other thing is, I do these practices with other people to help them write their story. So I interview them for a couple of hours. I narrate the story. I write it up to them. I reflect it back to them. And what I've noticed time and time again is that people are very quick to narrate the story of all the terrible things that happened to them. It's just natural. We don't mean to do it, but that's part of our intuitive expression of like, let me get this out first. But the problem is that we've identified with that version of ourselves, right? So once we get all of that out and we narrate that and we look at that and we look at how we survived that and thrived despite that, then I start to ask them, well, let's go back again. Let's go back again to all of the blessings. Who was the art teacher in high school that created a space for you, right? What is the meditation or the practice that came into your life that was a lifeline for you? What are the aha moments? Like, let's look at how the light has flown and people are blown away. They're like, oh. And that light, we keep creating more space and connecting those dots and seeing how we've always been loved. We've always been safe. We've always been protected. We've always been connected. And it's challenging to see that when we have all this other mental trash, but we're able to shift and see that when we look at our story and we work with our story and we find those threads of light throughout the story. And then this portal of change for me is I'm more identified with who I am in my light than who I am in my darkness when I get to the other side of these processes. I now identify with who I am in my light and not just like all the things that happened to me. And I think that's critical for where we are now in time and space, that people start to make this transition because we're so much more powerful and we need to step into that. There's a lot of resistance. It's scary. Who am I to be the leader? Who am I to be the voice? Who am I to, you know, I don't know, stand in this power? But that's like so important for us to step into now.
oh my gosh, I couldn't agree more. And I love that thought of how can I identify more with my light than with my trash?
Yeah,
It's so important. and
yeah,
and in some ways there's, I think about like the cycle of creation, like Shiva Shakti, right? Like you have to like have deconstruction to have construction. And so it's like being able to let go of those boxes to let that light flow through. So how, tell us a little bit about like the process you use to help people. I know you mentioned like hearing their story and stuff, but how can we, how can we bring more of that flow in, or how can we start to like deconstruct those boxes to allow more of those, that light to flow in? Like how do you use, what's the power of telling story? What are some of the ways that you use to help people begin to create more of that flow?
Yeah, the good news is that all healing is self-healing. That was the finding of my dissertation. All healing is self-healing. So you have access to all of this already, right? You have access to all of the resources and all the things that you need. That being said, sometimes it's helpful if somebody points you in the right direction. Like, I know, but which way do I go? So sometimes it helps, which is why you're having this summit, because you're having these 15 amazing people kind of point, go this way, don't go this way. My advice, the direction you should go is like journal, okay? Just get some. I bought this at the dollar store. It was $1. Okay, go to the dollar store and buy a journal and write things in it, okay? Don't talk to ChatGPT about your problems, okay? Don't go post about them on Instagram. Get a journal and write down your feelings. Take a digital detox day. I took 2 digital detox days this weekend. The whole universe was talking to me the whole 2 days. I just went out in nature. I just listened. I asked questions. I wrote down the answers. You have access to this. All of us have access to this, but you got to disconnect from the noise, the distraction, the technology, the superficiality, and you have to spend some time listening to yourself. At first, it might be a lot of junk. Like I'm a university professor. I'm teaching 2 meditation classes at university right now. The students keep a journal. They write in the journal, oh, but then I thought about like, all the things I didn't want to think about. That might come up first. So write all that down and just keep going. Another great practice is the art, the artist's way. She recommends the morning pages. If you start doing this every day, doing the morning pages, then you're going to clear out all the junk. And then there's going to be more space for the universe and your spirits and everybody to talk to you. Okay. So like that's like the easiest, simplest way. If you get in there and you get in the goo of all of it and you're lost or you're confused, that's when you have resources like Katrina and me, like all the women that are on here to like help you kind of clean up the mess that's going on in there. And it's totally legit to ask for support and help. Nobody is meant to be doing all of this stuff alone. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be supporting each other. And so that's like the easiest place to start. Like it's just I think we try to make it really, really difficult, but it doesn't have to be difficult. You can allow yourself ease and you can allow yourself to reconnect. If writing's not your thing, okay, so go get some markers, go get some, you know, I don't know, pick up an old instrument, put on some music and dance around your living room. Find the thing that used to light you up, the thing that used to make you feel like you were just floating. Find that, do it a little bit more each day. Even if you feel cringy, it's going to feel cringy. It's going to feel cringy when why am I dancing in my underwear in the living room? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just put on one song and do it for 3 minutes. It's okay if it's cringy. Like you don't have to film it and put it on social media. This can be a practice just for you, but this is really important. The thing is, all the systems that we're used to are breaking down. If we're not reconnected to our own creative juices, it's it's going to be bad. You need these creative juices for your own resilience, for your physical and mental health. You need these juices, and it's important for you to go inside and find them.
Yeah, I think such an important thing that you just presenced was to have it be your own practice, to take away anything that feels like it has to be a performance, has to be validated. Like find that flow first before you try to share it with the world, right? Like feel it and let it be just for you. And and it can just be that like special sacred space you have for yourself in whatever way feels the most juicy, the most delicious, the most.
Yeah, there's an intimacy to this. There should like you're not the intimacy that you have with like a love partner or something like that. You're not broadcasting that everywhere, right? there's an intimacy to that. There's a sacredness to that. We don't have to like publish all this stuff all the time. What we find is that we're more resourced when we do these things, and then we can serve better in whatever way we need to serve, you know? I mean, I tend to put a lot of stuff out there because I'm just like kind of an exhibitionist with my experiences because I find that other people really resonate and that it helps them. So, okay, I'll embarrass myself on the page because it helps you. Like that's but you don't have to do that. It's the conversation I have with everybody when they start on this. But what if my mom reads this? Or what if my dad reads this? Okay, let's not worry about that right now. That's not the part that we're at. We're at the part where you are coming alive again, where you're going to deconstruct and you're going to be reborn. Like, let's just stay there. Let's just
Yeah.
like let's just stay there for now. Let's be gentle. Let's be kind. Let's be patient.
Well, it's interesting because it's actually like kind of facing death in a way, right? Like it's like that the part of the creative cycle that is the death part. And and that's not when we are like putting the thing that's formed out there. It's when we're letting it all come back to just like pure energy. And we
Yeah.
have to allow for that place, but we don't often allow for that in the way that we like our societal construct, right? Like what we've like deemed what we how we need to be productive. We need to always be creating. We now need to always be making, right? And that doesn't allow for that refueling of the creative energy.
It's
So
completely unnatural. It's completely, and it's psychotic. It's completely unnatural and pathological. It's pathological.
yeah,
Nature doesn't do that. The reason there are seasons in nature, and I live in Florida, so the seasons are really subtle, but there are seasons for a reason.
yes,
Could you imagine, like, and you see this, like, when they overcrop a field, they just keep planting and harvesting and planting, and then the soil doesn't have time to regenerate, and then it turns to dust. It is unnatural and pathological to be in that production all the time. And if you're seeing that constantly reflected back to you, it's because the world doesn't care about you. Social media doesn't care about you. Your boss doesn't care about you. What they want is to take. And you need to be able to set those boundaries to refill your own bucket. It's really, really hard. The first day that I do a digital detox, I try to do these quarterlies. It's my new commitment. The first day I might cry the whole day because I'm like, because I've been exhausted for months and I wasn't even paying attention to how exhausted I was. But I'm like, okay, this is what we're doing. Let's get in the bathtub. Let's just
yeah.
cry. This is
Let
what
it
we're
out.
doing today.
Let the
Like,
stuck energy go. Yeah, 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 yeah. And it is it's critical to find to let that regeneration happen in order to have like a true creative flow, but also just to feel your light, to feel the truth of your energy, right? Like otherwise, I mean, I think that's why so many of us are walking around feeling burned out and exhausted and not creative. I mean, most people will tell you I'm not a creative person, and I
yes.
always find that fascinating just because we're inherently creative, right? Talk about like the role imagination plays in this because I love talking about imagination because it's something that we've discounted so much over time, and yet like it's also how our creativity kind of arrives to us, right? Like how we have that conversation with ourselves in the early mornings for the pages. Like talk to us a little bit about your take on that.
I would love to hear your definition of imagination if you don't mind sharing it.
Oh gosh, what is my definition of imagination? I think of it as oh, like the creative, like our inner sight, our inner view of our creativity, like what is coming to us behind the scenes, flowing to us from inspiration.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice container for it. It's like the inner laboratory.
Yeah.
And I feel like my imagination is a combination of what I call downloads, right? Or things that I'm getting from the ethers.
Yes.
And then like a co-creation with just like my personal experience. It's kind of like where all of that sort of mushes together.
Yeah.
Um, and my imagination is narrated like the there's like a Morgan Freeman in there. Like this is like narrating everything that's happening. And I remember I was taking mushrooms one time and I was with my friend Jamie and I was like, "Do you hear that?" And she's like, "What?" And I'm like, "It's like Morgan Freeman. He's telling us everything that we're doing in real time." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "You don't have that narration." And she's like, "I don't know," which is probably why I'm a writer, right? That's probably
Yeah.
why I am a writer, because there's the narrator at all times describing this experience that you and I are doing to me in my own mind. Very strange, but it's probably why I'm a writer. Other people, they'll hear music, or like my brother, he's a musician. The first time he hears a song, he has perfect recall and he'll sit down and just play the song, right? So I think all of that to me is imagination, and it all falls within the realm of gifts, and it all falls within this realm of communication with the unseen. We're
Yeah.
so like, we're such funny animals. Like,
I know.
we think that why we want to make everything a physical, tangible thing. I don't understand, because it's like 99.999% of our experience is unseen. All the thoughts, all the feelings, all the ethers, all the air, all the love, all the anger. Like, it's all intangible. And then we get all hung up on this, like, oh, well, I don't know how scientific that is. Like, what are you talking about? Like, there's a whole world inside of here. There's sounds. There's like, if you think of Mozart or these composers, they were just they were just recording what they were hearing in their mind. It's magic. It's
Yeah.
astonishing. It's extraordinary. Like, and we all have the capacity to be like open to receiving all of that, but you got to stop for a second and you got to look at what's going on in there. You have to take some time.
Yeah, to look at what's going on in there and begin to unravel the ways that it's been discounted, right? Like maybe since you touched on it, I know you've worked with plant medicine quite a bit and studied it, and you bring it into your practice with people. How can that help in cultivating that connection with that inner world and help to maybe unwind some of those boxes?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was a reluctant psychonaut. Like, I was not someone who was, taking acid in high school or something like that. I was always like, say no to drugs, and drugs are bad. And I was just, that was not my journey. And then when I did my dissertation research about 20 years ago, all of the healers that I interviewed kept telling me nature is a teacher and a tool for healing. And to me, I thought, like, well, they're just staring at trees. What does that mean? And that's not helpful. And like, I'm stressed, and that's like, I was like listening, but I wasn't understanding what they were saying. And then of course, because the universe has a sense of humor, it drops me in the lap of some medicine women during the pandemic. I lived with a woman in New Mexico who was working with peyote, and because of my love for her, my trust for her, I started microdosing with peyote. And then I met another woman in Guatemala who's working with psilocybin mushrooms. And because I love and trusted her, I worked with the mushrooms and then ayahuasca and so on and so forth. And it was because of a couple of reasons. One was because I was desperately trying to get this book out of my body, and it just needed some lubrication, man. It was just in there, and it was almost coming into the
Like your
world, but it was
creativity like pushing at your seams, like come on, let me
I
through.
was like, please get this book out of me. And they were like, okay, you need plants,
Yeah.
because you're just gonna explode. You need the plants. Let the plants help you. And they taught me how to let the plants be my teachers, my tools, my allies, so that I could trust my own creativity, that I could let go of my own control. Like, we're just so controlling. We're so bound up. Everything has to be the way we want it to be all the time. The weather and the guy who's driving in front of us and the
Uh,
tech, and why isn't the technology work? Like, we're so bound up all the time. And so the plants help me I call the plants like creative laxative. I know it's a terrible analogy, but
oh,
like, it was just like, Gabby, let it go. Gabby, just let it go. Would you? Like, everything is fine. You're totally safe and supported by us. We love you. And that's my new relationship that I have with the plants. I use them Safe and ethical use. I use them medicinally. I personally don't use them recreationally, which everybody, to each their own. But for me, I use them when I need to digest those emotions and thoughts that are in the way of my most authentic expression. And they help me. They help me so much, and they feel really safe. And they just, for me, make creativity a lot easier?
Do you think like what they're doing is like we talked about the seasons and how nature just so easily moves through that regenerative cycle? Like they're just helping us pull back into our own nature, our own knowing of like that cycle.
I mean, I think that there's millions of things that they do, and I think that's one of them. The plants have an inherent sentience. There's like an inherent intelligence in plants, and each one that we ingest down to the simplest things like ginger or garlic or rosemary, all the way up to the most complex ones like an ayahuasca or an ibogaine, all of them have an intelligence, and that intelligence interacts with the trillions of cells in our body, like the trillions of cells. And they're like, hi, nice to meet you. Oh, hi, nice to meet you. And they exchange information. And that information could be rewiring the nervous system, or that information could be, digesting the trauma. Like there's so many different ways that they can come in and they can connect us to the broader perspective. We are staring at our own mind all the time, thinking that we are like the center of the universe. And the plants recognize that we are part of something so much bigger than ourselves. They are rooted in a whole ecosystem, in a whole Gaia sphere, in a whole universe. And they have that awareness and they bring it into our tiny little self. And then we can connect to something so much bigger. And then there's something about them. Plants in general just have like such a purity, there's just such a, they are who they are. Like a lavender doesn't try to be a rose, and a rose doesn't try to be a green bean. You know what I mean? They just,
Yeah.
there's such an inherent natural purity and authenticity. They can just teach us so many, and I know I sound loony, but I don't care. Like
Oh, I
plants.
don't think you do.
Well, as I'm talking, I'm like, you should probably not be saying this in a recording, but it's
You
just so.
absolutely should be saying all of this in a recording.
Oh my God. If my dad's probably turning over in his grave, my dad was a neurologist and a psychiatrist. He's probably like, what is she saying on the internet? You
And
know?
that's part of that box, right? Like that's part of like the way that we've pruned to make everything make sense in an agreed upon fashion societally. But like you mentioned earlier, there's this breakdown happening. Like there is deconstruction happening all around us. Like in whatever way you view it, we can't deny that that's what's going on. And there's an instability that's felt, right? But in that instability, like this is a great time to also really like cultivate that, and there's room, there's space almost, right, to like have that authenticity come through, to have new ways of believing and seeing the world come through. So in this like time that can feel so unstable and shaky, what are, I know you mentioned the writing, like how would you tell somebody or help somebody understand how they could like grasp this in a really beautiful way,
I
this
mean, you just did it. You
time?
just modeled it perfectly. I started going, oh my God, I'm telling Katrina all these crazy things, and now she's going to put it in a summit and she's going to send it to thousands of people. Like you just did it. You just did it. And you said, Gabby, no, this isn't crazy. This makes sense. People need to hear this. Things are breaking down. We need this information. We need to do things differently than we've been doing them before. Like you just did it. That's something that we have to do in our own mind all the time. You're going to have an instinct to talk about how the plants talk to you. Okay. That's going to be something that you're going to have an instinct. And then the editor is going to come in and be like, your dad would be so disappointed in you right now. And
Yeah.
it's going to come in, it's going to point in your face. And it's going to be very uncomfortable. And somehow you have to find within yourself the voice of Katrina being like, no, no, this is important and you need to go in timeout. this, you know what I mean? Like, no, this is what
Yeah.
we're doing. This is what we're saying. It's a practice I do with my clients, like you just did with me. And it's something that we need to be able to do within our own mind all of the time. It's
Mhm.
very uncomfortable. You feel like you're going crazy when you first start doing it. Like, it's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, yeah. And it requires like a trust, kind of like a surrender, right? To this, to let that flow come through, to say, I'm gonna trust myself enough that this information I don't have to prune, I don't have to box it up anymore. Like it can just, I can just let it come through. And so in like you help people share their stories, right? Like you use the stories to to um to help let that flow come through. Like how, so even if somebody isn't going to write a book or they don't want to write a memoir, right? But like how important is it to work with the story regardless?
I mean, to me, it saved my life. To me, it saved my life. So, yeah, I do one day experiences with people that I call the core story. We basically write your whole memoir in a day. Like, we get down to the bones of like all the things
Yeah.
and we find the patterns. And the reason that I can do that is because I did my dissertation research using narrative analysis. So, it's my expertise to find patterns in stories and to take those patterns and look for themes. And those themes point to the purpose of your life. And
Mm-hmm.
they point to the things in your life that light you up and the gifts that you're supposed to share with others. And I do it really quickly and I do it really well. And to me, doing that, it anchors you in who you really are and not who your brain is telling you you should be. And so for me, when you keep coming back to that, it helps to reinforce that trust that you're talking about. It helps to reinforce, no, this is who I am. No, this is who I am. And it helps you anchor in a different self-identity than all the like nonsense ones that you made up or like the masks that you made or whatever. It really, it connects you to your core. And when I do this practice with people, oftentimes I'll do all the interviews, we'll make the narrative, I'll reflect the narrative back to them, and oftentimes they'll burst into tears and I'll say, Why are you crying?" And they'll say, like, "I've never heard my own story before." I mean,
Mm-hmm.
imagine going like 30, 40, 50, 60 years without hearing your own story. Your own story. Like you
Yeah.
spend hundreds of thousands of hours, reading books or watching movies or sitcoms or like consuming the content of other people's stories. Like, what about your story? What's your story?
Right.
And so it really it hits people in a different way that that changes their own reflection in the mirror. And it's really powerful. And it's like one of my favorite things to do. And it's really quick because of the particular kind of strategy that I use. But I think every human should do that. I don't think you should leave the
Yeah.
planet without knowing what your story was. I think everyone should do it.
Oh my gosh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's almost like to know myself, I can trust myself, right? And I can trust what's going to come through. And
Yeah.
it's really hard to do that if you're not willing to look at who you really are, right? So wow, what a powerful process. Such a gift to do. And then it's not about like what is it I'm supposed to create, it's just about living in that creative energy, right? Like to like, this is my meaning, this is my purpose, to just be alive in this flow and let whatever wants to come through. And that to do that, to like really see yourself in that true full way, allows you to.
Yeah, and you're always getting like pulled in all these directions. Like your spouse wants you to do one thing, and your kids want you to do, and your coworker, and you're somebody, and you're somebody. You're all right. And the other thing that happens when we tell ourselves our own stories, we gather all the pieces of ourselves that were forgotten or lost. We bring all those energies back in. And for me, that's very energetic. Like to go back to kind of the theme of the summit, energetically, you're taking back all the particles that you have been distributing everywhere. You're collecting all of them, you're bringing all the selves back together, and you're like looking at the whole thing, the whole picture. What's the whole point of this? Why are you even here? Like, what
Right,
is the
right.
point? Like,
I mean, if we're going to be here, we might as well be here in our most potent self, right? Like our most full flame, our most brilliant lights.
yes.
And that, I love that image you created earlier for us, like of being anchored in the self. And
Mhm.
you just mentioned like all the different ways we can be pulled out. Instead, when we're like pulling it all back in, remembering who we are, we're anchored then in that truth. And it's much easier to stand in that, right? Than and not get pulled in different directions when you really know that truth.
Yeah. The thing I like about having written my books is that when I start to feel like embarrassed about being too spiritual, I remember all of the synchronicities that have happened to me. I remember like, okay, you wrote about these already. You wrote about seeing the rainbow and the preacher and the plants are talking to you. So like, this is true for you. Is this or is this not true for you? And then I'm like, yes, it's true for me.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, fine, it's
Yeah.
true.
And I love when people share it because it makes it valid, more valid to recognize it in your own life, right? To not discount those synchronicities, to not discount the signs and all the things that we think we're just imagining, right? But and know like no, if that happened for her and it was true for her, it can also be true for me.
Yeah, which is a nice like throwback to your question about imagination. My best case scenario for imagination is that we're visioning the future, the more beautiful world that we want to be in together. We spend so much time on these like catastrophic expectations and oh, the government and the economy and something and there's a earthquake in Thailand. We spend so much time with these like projections of catastrophe and
Totally.
the one of the most powerful gifts of the imagination, especially collectively, is that we know we have research, we have scientific evidence that when we collectively come together and we meditate for nonviolence, for example, we actually see a decrease in violence in communities. Like there, this is not just in our imagination. It becomes then a creative force to create actual change in physical reality. And to me, that's the best use of imagination. Like, what are we trying to create? Not create by default because we're scared about everything and we're imagining the worst case scenario. What's the best case scenario? How are we moving in that direction? And that's something that I feel like even I could use more of that. Even because I like it's easy to get around people and like and this friend's complaining about her job and that friend's complaining about her husband and that you know what I mean? It's easy to get distracted with the things that don't feel good and it really requires some intention and some effort to be like, okay, let's talk about what we want the rest of this year to be like or this life to be like, you know?
Mm-hmm. I think it's a real, I mean, it is. It's something we're surrounded by all the pulls in the other direction, right? To use our imagination in that way and to support each other in doing it. Like it almost be a good challenge to bring this conversation to a close. Like anybody listening to create an intention to set that up for yourself each day, to vision the future you want, to set it up with a friend, with a circle, like so that so that more of us can hold that vision of what we want, not what we're fearing and what we don't want.
Yes, please. And if you do it, call me because I want to join. I want to join.
Totally, totally noted. That's on my notes now. I want to present that you are being so generous in gifting the your book, The
Yeah,
Last Ceremony, which is incredible, to the listeners in PDF form. So it will be
my
available
website.
to you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And we'll drop the note. We'll drop it in the notes, and that is everybody should check it out because it really is such a beautiful book.
Thanks so much. This was really great. You are great at asking questions.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for being here and joining the summit. Oh my goodness. I'm so happy you are all here. In these times, especially when the structures around us that we have relied upon are crumbling, and when there is so much at stake, when there feels like there's a lot of instability, in these times, especially, you need to get yourself in the flow. You need to know how to work with your energy and how to tune into the subtle currents of life and harmonize with them. We have to become our own sacred flow. We no longer can rely on the structures that have been set up for us. We are building new ones. And that is a beautiful thing. That's an exciting thing. To know how to do that in a greater way, to really embody and integrate all the things we've learned in this summit and that we're going to continue to learn. Come join me for my special masterclass, which will be the last session of the summit. We'll dive into how to get to know these currents, how to understand how to work with your subtle energy, how to bring this all together and bring it into action in your life so that you create your own net of support, your own structure for how you live that comes from an authentic embodiment of your sacred energy. I'll see you there.